This week on the Fourth Curtain podcast, we got a chance to catch up with game design legend Warren Spector. Here's a clip from the interview of Warren describing his philosophy of game design and how he approaches making games. During the clip, you'll notice some footage of Epic Mickey Rebrushed. This is one of his greatest games, which is just now being remastered and re-released. You can listen to the full episode at thefourthcurtain.com or wherever you get your podcasts. A big thank you to our sponsors, Amber Studio, your creative development partner, and Overwolf, makers of CurseForge, the leading UGC platform for gamers and creators.
I used to encourage folks to go play D&D or do some role playing. And you started playing D&D, you said 78, which, when did D&D, the first edition of D&D was like
74. Yeah.
So you were in that early, you worked in that part of the business. What do you think of? Like, what do you think of first? How do you make a game? How does Warren make a game? And how has your sort of like your journey starting through film and role playing and writing and like how has that maybe given you a unique process that's different from?
Yeah, my process is total chaos. Now, there are a bunch of different ways to start a game. You can start with a role. You can start with an experience you want to provide for players. You can start with a relationship you want to have with players. You can start with a world you want to explore. You can start with a mechanic that you think would be interesting. I've done all of those. On Deus Ex, I wanted to empower players to tell stories, their unique stories with me. I mean, like I wasn't kidding earlier when I said I've been trying to recreate the D&D experience for 35 years in digital games. And the things about D&D that are most compelling are the dialogue between players and the dungeon master. The dungeon master provides, I mean, this is so cliched, but it's true. The dungeon master provides the skeleton, and the party, the players put the meat on the bones, right? And that exchange of ideas is really powerful. And the DM, this is how much power players have. The DM might construct a scenario that's all combat-y, and the players come in and say, yeah, we don't feel like fighting. And the dungeon master adjusts on the fly to what the players want to do. And that's what I always try to do. That's what every game I've worked on has been about. It's about that dialogue. I think about my games as I'm having a conversation with players. They don't even realize it, but I'm laying out situations that players can interact with however they want, and having unique experiences. Like, you can buy a D&D module and play it with your friends, and I can play that same module with my friends, and we will have radically different experiences. And that's what I want to do in a game. That's the most important thing to me. After that, it's finding something people already care about. I'm not a big believer in convincing people to be interested in something. So, on Deus Ex, it was before Y2K. Everybody's into conspiracy theories. Bioengineering was just becoming a thing. Pandemics were just becoming a thing. Terrorism was just becoming a thing. Engaging players and forcing them very subtly to think about those things was what I wanted to do. And I always tell my teams, if two players describe the same experience of an encounter, of a mission, or of a game, we've failed. I want players saying stuff like, wasn't it cool when you freed that prisoner from the prison under UNATCO headquarters? And another player says, what prison? That's the win for me. But think about it. Most other games, I'm overstating a little bit, but just to make the point, okay, no filters time. I hate games that are like you're standing on the edge of a chasm and you have to get to the other side, and you leap across the chasm and you barely catch on by your fingertips, and you look up and there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex looking down, and you've got a gun in your hand and you shoot him in the mouth and you climb up and then you're on the other side. And another player says, yeah, that was cool. like, screw that. It's interactive in that you have to show some Twitch skills, I guess, and you have to outsmart the designer. But what I want is, I'm not jumping across that chasm. I'm going to find another way. I mean, one of the rules in my games is there's always another way. I got a lot of rules, by the way. No, and my teams, they have to buy into those rules, or we're going to be a bad fit. And it's time for them to vote with their feet. If people who don't buy into my mission have to go. And I have a mission. I wrote a 12-page version of it that no one on the planet has ever read. And so I did an 8-page version and a 4-page. By the way, developers don't read. And I finally got it down to, I said, screw it. It's 2 words. Play style matters. Your experience is driven by how you
painted
play.
that on the wall of your studio. I remember very much remember reading that. And that's what that means. Yeah. Okay.
That's what that means. It's about empowering players to tell their stories in collaboration with me. My job is only to provide context and significance to what they're doing. The players have to own, I did this and I did that and then this happened. They own that. But I say you have to rescue your brother from terrorists who are holding him hostage behind this door. And I don't care how you get through the door. It's like, why do games care how you get through a door? You know, what's interesting is what's on the other side of the door, right?
Yeah. So when you approach like design, maybe this is getting a little in the weeds, but it like, do you like think about, okay, here's the scenario and let's think about this, like, I don't know, 5 ways that a player can get through this? Or do you think, hey, we're going to make this toolbox, there's a bunch of systems, and let's just make sure that scenarios we design work with each of the elements of the toolbox?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of scripting. I'm a systems guy. I mean, I believe in systemic design. Let's put it that way. I'm the least technical human on the planet, but no. So it's all about creating systems, small systems that interlock. It's like one example I use a lot is in a lot of games, you have a flask full of oil, and it has one use. It could be the oil can be set on fire, or the oil makes the floor slippery, or one of those things. And in my mind, oil has a bunch of properties. Like, you've got a clay flask full of oil. You throw it on the ground, the clay flask breaks, makes noise, attracting attention. But also the oil spreads on the ground, and that can make the world slippery, so characters that are coming might slip on the oil. Or you can set the oil on fire, and it will create a smoke screen, and if something walks into it, it'll damage it, but it also provides cover so you can get away from the bad guys. It also creates heat, which might burn a piece of paper. So you build in the properties of the objects and the stems that affect those properties, and you've got a system that players can exploit. I'm going to overstate to make my point, however they want. That's where you start. But here's the truth that dare not be spoken. You have to make sure that every problem, we don't create puzzles. You're not allowed to say the word puzzle on my team. We create problems and challenges. And you have to make sure that every problem and challenge is solvable, right? So typically, what I learned this from Richard Garriott, actually. Come up with 2 ways to solve each problem, just to make sure you can get past it.
Right.
I'll tell you, it's another Richard story, Ultima 6. We did that. There would be a couple of solutions to every puzzle at the time. And there was one time I was watching a tester play a particular part of the game, and there was a portcullis that was down, and there was a lever on the other side, and you had to flip the lever to raise the portcullis so you could keep making progress. And you needed the telekinesis spell to do that. Okay. And he didn't have the telekinesis spell. So I'm thinking, he's screwed. He's going to have to stay over there and get the telekinesis spell. But instead, what he did was he took Sherry the mouse, who was in his party, who was mouse-sized, had her go under the portcullis, flip the lever, and open the portcullis so he could go through. That was not planned. Okay.
Okay.
And that was the first time. It's like I fell on the floor, And just, I said, I'm going to do that on purpose for the rest of my life.
Thank you for joining us for this special segment of the Fourth Curtain Podcast. To listen to full episodes, visit us at thefourthcurtain.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.